Hello everyone. Today I'm going to discuss the Chinese propaganda across the world, the league of crisis that have been developed lately. That includes, that include this the cross border thing and the crisis. It is also a crisis for China. The economic crisis, which can be prognosticated uh, with the help of the trend that the China is having currently, plus the crisis of pandemic nationally for China as well as on international level. So, having said this, if I relate this the cross border crisis, the border crisis on an international level, that includes, as I mentioned earlier, the Taiwan, the Hong Kong, and now India. Today, as the meeting got over, today there was supposed to be a meeting between the two parties, between the two nations, and the meeting happened not, it was not a physical meeting, but wherein both the parties have come together on a table, sat together and discussed everything. Not like that, but yes, due to the present ongoing the epidemic, the meeting happened on a video conference, and I don't know what is the extent of the success of such a meeting, but they have agreed. India have demanded three of their point, and to which the other party agreed or not. That would be seen not now, but in the near future. When I say near future, that means in probably next few days or in few months. But yes, the face of this face of thing needs to be diluted. Why it needs to be diluted? Because of the imbalance. The imbalance that is happening across the nation, in India and in China too, and that imbalance is in connection with the economy. India is strong enough to face all its trouble when it comes to economy, but this is not the case with China. It is the same country. China is the same country which holds if they stand face to face, and if their so-called army forces comes into picture, and the comparison says that China with 20 lakhs of army and India with 11.5 lakhs of army, plus the what do you call that, marine, the submarines. They have two. China have two, India have one, and the comparison is not that much full of it's chasm. There's a chasm between the two, wherein one party stands way high and the other party stands way low. It's not that kind of comparison, but they stand almost like head to head when it comes to arms and ammunition. That's another aspect. But yes, this is the strength of both the countries when it comes to the war. But barring that apart, I mean, if you consider China, do not think the Chinese people in normal, right? Chinese people at their level, they have a different concept of understanding of the topic that is currently going on globally. But when you mention China in that context, wherein all the countries have carved their in their own fashion, then they are copying who? They are copying not the Chinese people in general, but they are copying the Chinese government, right, which is CCP, and the Chinese Communist Party. They have this history of dogmatism. They do like to be dogmatic. They do not. There is no sense of acceptance. And once it was mentioned that way back in the history, somebody tried. I mean, there were this crowd who tried to impose democracy in the nation, as a result of which, and as a result of the protest in the favor of democracy, the Chinese, the CCP, which was in the ruling course, they just, I mean, released everything. They released army on these people, and these people were dead, and it was so brutal, and it was so, the blood gory that took place at that point in time has stretched a black spot in the history. It just smeared on the face of the history that how cruel a human being, I mean, this human society could be. I mean, the Chinese, the CCP government, they just dislodged all the force of army, wherein the tanks were straight away, and the army people were standing with their arms and ammunition straight away in front of these disarmed people who were protesting for democracy, and they were put to death, and it was a brutal death. Now, none of them stayed alive, and it is a history. Nothing like this has took place in the history of mankind. Such was the brutality of the CCP. This was a bit of background of CCP. Now there is this small story that is connected. Not a story, but it's not a made-out story. It is a fact. The documentary has been made on this way back to 1.5 months or 2 months ago. I mean, they established the Wuhan virology center is responsible for this COVID-19 disease that has turned out to be a pandemic for the world, and it is just worsening. Every day is a worsening phase. As the day is progressing, it is not looking back. It's just have, the Wuhan virology center, there was some conspiracy theory that was going on, or something went on. The story is a bit long, but since I do have a time constraint here, I won't be able to mention each and every nook and cranny of the story. But having mentioned this, I would say the state government was aware of what was going on in China way back in the month of October, when the army there was sort of an army competition thing internationally that took place in China. It was at that point in time when this whole thing took place, and the U.S. Army got infected first, and that was taken back to their home nation, the home country of America, and from there it spread across the globe. But before that, it already had taken place in China, of which the government was aware 100%. You can, if you want to see, you can go on YouTube and just have a look on the face, that the tinge of worry on the face of Jinping when he's just taking a visuals of what was going on, the kind of competition. I mean, the show of the army of all the different countries around the globe that was taking place. That tinge of worry on the face, he was not totally into the groove of what was going on at that point in time. But yes, when this thing has happened, so people now have taken out these excerpts from the past and from a lately archived kind of thing. They have retrieved it, and they have figured it out that this is the reason why everything is happening, and they are now correlating each and everything, and this correlation has been successful so far. It cannot be negated completely, and it cannot be it's not like it can be put out of the context, and you can spare this and then move on, making out the concept of how this pandemic ruptured the humanity across the globe. So first thing first, when it started in China, it should have impacted China thoroughly, but it did not. And the reason why it happened so was it because of the conspiracy theory? Was there something going on? And if the Chinese government thought about this virus, the CCP virus, in a conspiring way, then is this a show, or is this a hoax that they've shown to the world, or they've shown that okay, they were seeing that we are impacted now, and the economy has dipped down by 1%. I'm talking about in the month of January, the last week of January. This was ubiquitous, that the Chinese economy has gone down, and they've shown to the world that they are struck by this epidemic, and suddenly everything stopped for them in that particular city, barring the rest of the cities of that country, and reached to the other nation, Italy, and from that became the hot spot for the world, and then later on it like transmitted to the rest of the nation, to the Western nation first, like European countries, and then reaching USA. Now, this is the whole thing. That if you call, or the crux of all the sports, like in a streak, and you make a picture or you make a line, if you want to make a line, then there'll be a story that will be created, and this story implies that the Chinese, the CCP government is evil in the sense that they do not bother about anything. Forget about humanity. They do not even bother for their crowd. I mean, they know that this is irreplaceable government, and they are utilizing all their resources to the optimum level, and the resources are being used in such a way that it only implies that they want to impose their procedure onto the rest of the world, irrespective of the consequences, which could be brutal for everyone. I mean, this is the height of the evil deeds about it's not human. I mean, the way they have shown their culture, they have this intense culture, they have this rich culture in them, but this is about the rest of the Chinese, not the CCP government. I mean, those who come and join this party, it's like a virus for them. They become part of it, and they start behaving like one of them, who wants to dominate the world in their own ways, and they're trying to portray that okay, see that now that we have the power has shifted from the Western culture or from the United States to China, and they were so desperate that the desperation, this spread of this epidemic across the world is a mere resemblance of the desperation of the Chinese government. And in doing so, they forgot that they have tarnished their image globally, as a result of which, or for example, thousands, I mean, hundreds of companies have shifted from China to India. The world is having a look upon India as a substitute to the China being not nice, which they have observed, and so now that they have observed that China is not being nice, so India could be always have been a better example. But since they didn't have any reason to do what they did now, they were in the own zone, in that kind of zone. But now, since this thing has occurred, the Chinese, the CCP thought process has been exposed globally. So as a result of which, the economic assistance is, in order to serve the world, is shifting from China to India now. So this is the whole story. I mean, the way I have understood is that the end of certain kind of intention towards the world is on its brink, right? And this thought process cannot last long. China also know that their economy, if they stand in front of any country for that matter to fight, they know deep down that they won't be able to survive, because they cannot take on any more dip down in their economy. And they know this for a fact, that if they clash, or if they engage themselves directly with India on its border, then the consequences is going to be very alarming for them. They won't be able to resist with that kind of dip down in the economy, as a result of which they will collapse. They will collapse internally as well as externally. And similarly, the case is this kind of scenario is also with Taiwan and Hong Kong. I mean, it is just to diverge the mind of the world from what is currently happening in China, and distracting the world that, okay, see that we have been facing these problems for a long time, and this has touched the acme. And since the world is having a look upon China in a different way, as a result of which that they have to engage in a war in order to save their own country. And this is what they have also tried to portray in front of their people, and that the people know that what has went wrong within the country and how they have been treated. But yes, nonetheless, it is still functioning the way it had been functioning for a long time. God knows how long it'll last, but it doesn't seem well for China, and neither for all the rest of the nations. The world is currently on the brink of a war. It seems like at any point in time they will burst into some kind of chaos, and it's like a global burst. And first thing first, they have to stop. They have to stop this. They have to realize the consequence, not in a way that they have been looking upon now, but in a different way. This is a black side. This is a loop-sided concept. They have to straighten up their concept and understand that what is the need of the situation. This it's not actually a situation, it's a plight for all the nations across the globe. That's my take on this. Lately, having said this, I would like to bring up more kind of concepts and my own understanding towards what is currently going on in the nation. I do always think that I do have a time constriction, which is why I try to gather all the details that I have gone through, I have read, and what I have understood. So, and bringing that into a notion wherein I could make an environment of being understood easily, and that is, it's not an easy task. It's a meticulous task, and one has to be very scrupulous when they do it. So that's how I reckon, and this is my understanding. What do you think that the CCP government is functioning the way that it is functioning? Is it right, or should this be? Should there be an end to this? And if it is, then how likely it is very positive for the world? Obviously, it will be very positive for rest of the world if it gets demolished, or if it gets transformed. Right? So it's not about China, it's a CCP government that is ruling China, and they are ruining so far everything. Right? It's like an epidemic in its own terms, not this disease, but it is an epidemic for its own concept. Right? And that's my take on. Do please mention the comments in my comment section and send me the messages too, and make me aware of the other things as well. The topics that I need to address specifically. I try to cull everything within a limited time of 5 to 10 minutes, but it's tough when you compile a certain topic like this. It is tough to compile a topic like this in a span of 5 or 6 minutes. Only if you have already very specific pointers, and pointers won't make you understand each and everything. but I don't know whether I have succeeded in doing this or in this video or not. That would only reflected that would be reflected through the responses of yours, right? So that's it. See you in the next video. Bye.